Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Living a Lost podcast. Today, I'm joined by the wonderful Bensons, Georgia and Ella. Thank you guys for joining me.
Excited to be here.
Yeah, very excited to be here.
Yeah, I know we've been kind of like discussing this for a little while, I guess. But obviously, it's really nice to have you both on. Like, not weird story, but one, like, obviously, I didn't talk about loss that much, or grief, or cancer even. And I don't know if you remember this, but one of the first conversations I had about my mum was with you, and it was coming back. It was, I think, a Halloween party or something, and we must have been at I can't remember, Alfie Fox's or somewhere in, and I remember I was wearing like something cancer related on my wrist, and we had like a conversation about that, and just like obviously random story, just kind of start the episode. Yeah. Georgia and I know each other, but yeah, it's just like one of those things that at the time never spoke about it in my life, and it was just like nice to have that bond. But anyway, we're here today not to talk about me. So I just will go right into it, and who are we here to speak about today, and just sort of share a bit of their story.
Do you wanna? You can take it away.
Yeah, sure. So we lost our mum 3.5 years ago now. She actually had cancer. She had lymphoma 15 years ago. So Georgia was about one
or two, yeah.
And I was about 3. And one of my early memories is genuinely being like dressing up as a nurse, going to the hospital to visit my mum while she was having chemo. And then she had like radiotherapy, and because of that radiotherapy, 15 years later, she got another form of cancer called sarcoma. And I was in my first year of uni,
and I was in year 12, so first year A levels.
Yeah.
And she had sarcoma for probably over a year and a bit. So they did like various kind of, I guess, treatments. She went to Florida for 6 months for it.
Yeah.
And kind of towards the end, it like spread around her body. And it was kind of, I guess for her, it was like a peaceful way to pass away, because it kind of, she had no idea about it, that it kind of spread to her brain.
Okay.
But yeah, then she passed away in February of 2018.
Yeah, I mean, two things, obviously, well, many things I do want to bring up, but one of the things that I initially, being at uni, and obviously at that time, how was that for you? Because I lost mum second year, and that was, catastrophic, but being at uni, and I guess, A levels as well, but like how did that affect, I guess, your work schedule? Like what implications did that have on your, say, schooling life?
So I think there's two things. I think for uni, I was really lucky that my uni was an hour away. So I'd literally go to uni for the morning and then come back home to the hospital and spend the time with my mum. I actually was like writing essays in the hospital, because I'd say my mum was in hospital for like a good 3 months. So I was writing essays when I was visiting her, and then the actual last 2 weeks, we actually stayed in the hospital, slept on the floor in the hospital.
Both of you?
Yeah. Both of us, and my dad on the sofa. So like we argued about the blankets for whatever, but we were like working there. So it's completely different. I think the other thing with being at uni is that it's completely different. Like you're so used to going out 4 nights a week, like socialising with your friends out to 4 a.m, and then all of a sudden kind of everything happens. And then for probably when I came back to uni, I wasn't in the mood to go out, and it's really hard because you want to be with your friends, but then also you're probably not in the best mood to go out as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very, very weird one, but, I remember, I remember, your mum's situation quite well, because I think we spoke about it quite a bit at that time, and it's one of those things where when, you're going at 18, 21, when the loss, or you're going through something, cancer, like was it stage 4 or?
Yeah.
You automatically grow up. Like, not to say that, you were immature or whatever before that, but when something of this gravitation, comes at you, is that something you found?
I feel like both of us, we had to mature quite quickly. Like my A-level year, when my parents were away, Ella was at uni. So I was kind of like living, not by my grandma came round and friends would come round, but I was basically like cooking, trying to do A-levels. And I think emotionally as well, you kind of got this distance between, not a distance between you and your friends, but you kind of feel like you experience something that maybe changes you as a person. Yeah. Not everyone can relate to.
Yeah.
I don't know how you felt about that, but
yeah, I completely agree. I think the other thing is it's kind of brought us closer. We've always been really good sisters, but I think how some older sisters see their sister, like the younger sister, is like 2 years younger, and I think actually we kind of at the same age. I mean, like, she's better at cooking, more independent than I am, but
Oh, are you quite the cook?
I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm quite the cook, but Ella's like
What's your
the
go-to
most
dish?
undomesticated
Oh, really?
person
I'm
you've ever met.
How would you survive at uni?
literally, and like toast, pasta, like I'm
Classic.
Salmon stir fry every day, and that was it.
Do you know what I did on my first year of uni, right? So I couldn't cook. I was terrible. I'm a bit of a mummy's boy. And once I went to uni, I realised, shit, like I actually need to make food for myself, otherwise I'll starve. So I spoke to my next door neighbour who was making food every week, and I said to her, listen, if I give you £5 a week, you got one a bit extra for me. And she did. And for the whole of the first term, I didn't make a fucking well,
amazing.
not something to be proud of. It's like, but that was my situation. But yeah, no, I definitely think having that aspect in your life, it's not that it changes it, but you're in such a different kind of situation to your friends. And I found it's something inherently difficult to talk about, because loss is something that, you don't want to bring to the table. Did you ever find like there were times you wanted to speak about it, but like you couldn't, or?
I feel like I personally like don't necessarily bring it up a lot, just because the way I like to be is kind of like not let that event necessarily like define my life. So if I'm out with friends, I want to try my best to have a good night. So if it is in my head, I guess maybe like I wouldn't bring it up. I just try and like, push it to the back and have a good evening. Because I think also it's awkward because there's nothing anyone can say to change the situation necessarily. I guess people can like
comfort you.
Yeah, comfort you, but you can't really change what's happened. So in my head, I'm kind of like, let's just try and enjoy this night, enjoy this year, enjoy the life, like.
Enjoy the life. One
I
life,
think
man.
I'm the complete opposite.
Yeah.
I'm the most open book. And I think for a long time is that if you weren't in a good place or you weren't happy, how are your friends meant to know that?
Yes.
So actually, for a long time, like I didn't really say anything, and I expect my like friends to just like kind of guess how I was feeling. So I think probably now I do speak about it, and I kind of like keeping my mum's memory alive. So I like talking about things. So I think that's a nice thing to keep like kind of talking about.
Of course. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's so important to, as you said, keep my mum's memory alive, because, this is one of the reasons why I'm doing this. Like, one of the things she said to me was, don't let anyone forget me. And, when she was in the hospice and, her life was coming to an end, and, to hear that at the time, you're just like, right, why would anyone forget you? You're this figure of beauty and but as time passes, questions about how you're doing, questions about your mum, kind of, they become less. And it's not that people don't care. It's just you do move forward, and there are different things in your life and other people's lives, but there will always be this one aspect of our lives that we can't change.
Yeah.
And that's why it's important for me anyway to discuss it, and I will say her name as much as possible.
Yeah.
And I will. Yeah, I mean, but that's just important to me, and I know it's very different to everyone. But how has your relationship been with grief? What have you guys kind of found?
I feel like it's interesting because we've definitely grieved we're very similar in kind of all aspects of life.
Yeah.
Like school, the way sport, like
The
our interests, everything. But then I'd say our grief has kind of probably been quite different. Like for me personally, I feel like I kind of just carried on working. I had my A-level straight after, and I did, like, one thing my mum said was, don't let this event kind of like get you off your path.
Yeah, of course.
She lost her dad when she was 18.
Okay.
And like I think from that event, some of her life choices may have changed because of it, and she didn't want us ever like looking back and gone, oh, because my mum passed away, I didn't go to the university I should have gone to, or something like that.
Yeah, of course.
So I kind of carried on working and stuff like that. And I'd say like in the last year, I've probably become more open with speaking about it and stuff like that. I don't think it's not that I necessarily didn't want to talk about it.
No,
it's just
not.
like, for me, I just didn't like...
It's also very hard.
I didn't feel the need. I didn't really know how to bring it up or what to say or, how to deal with it, if that makes sense.
I think there is an awkwardness as well. Like, you bring up your mum and everyone kind of like is kind of silent. It's an awkward thing. Like, they don't... Because no one knows how to act. And I think, especially in northwest London, kind of at our age, it's very few and far between that people have lost their parents or lost like kind of immediately close relations. I think for most of our friends or most of like kind of the people we know, the closest person they've lost is genuinely a grandparent.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. It's so hard because it's so different for a grandparent to a parent. So when you are trying to speak about it, everyone doesn't really know how to act. And I think genuinely both our friends and like the family friends and everyone's been unbelievable. But I think it's also, this was one of the first times that, for our group of friends, it was one of the first times that this happened. So no one knew really how to act.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the, loss is this thing where there isn't a script. You're not taught, right, this is how you're going to behave in 3 months' time. You'll feel shit and you'll start crying. In 6 months' time, you'll be able to go. Like, there isn't this uniform thing that you can follow and tick it off as you go along, and that's just not grief and loss. But it's a very strange world. The whole dynamic about talking about loss, talking about grief. But the one thing that I found that was just I don't want to say traumatic, but it was just strange was the shiver. Mm-hmm. I don't know, like, for those that don't know, like, shiver's obviously something like in Judaism, like after someone's passed, you kind of show respect. This is me talking to the guest, not I'm not explaining it to you, do you know what I mean? But
as non-religious people, we probably do.
Yeah. You tell us more.
No, but oh god, it was just a really surreal. Do you remember yours?
Yeah. So I remember it being really overwhelming. The first night.
Yeah.
Lots of people come and, as you were explaining before, kind of to show their respect, like.
Yeah.
And you're meant to sit on a chair and people come up and they
just
greet you
it's
and everything.
strange.
But the first night I remember there being so many people and I kind of just felt so overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I actually had to go take myself away. Like, I went upstairs because especially after the shiver, when you're meant to like have these small chats with people and everyone's saying like, I wish you a long life, and I just found it really overwhelming.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but
yeah, I mean, I think in that situation I was genuinely all right, but it's like the transition for being distracted with everyone around the whole time that week, and then suddenly the day later and you're literally just at home, like me, my dad and my sister, and it's like all quiet sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think going from that and now it's like this is like kind of the start of a new chapter and a new life.
Yes.
I think that was harder for me. And then I think a stone setting, like when you have it the year later, I think that's also kind of really difficult because in a way you're seeing your mum's name and for us we saw our name on this like stone.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of a reminder what we've
like
lost.
Brings everything
back.
Yeah. Because I suppose, I know initially for me, I didn't like to think about my grief. I after I lost mum, it was the 23rd of October. A week later, I was out on Halloween.
Yeah.
And like, I remember this night, everyone was like, oh, what are you doing here? I mean, I got a lot of drinks. Like, everyone just saw me as like, obviously the guilty drinks.
Yeah.
Now and again, I do pull it up, but you're not going to get a drink for someone who lost their mum. But, initially I just wanted to get away from it, like that whole avoidance, and move to a different stage in my life. But I just kept having this thing kind of pulling me back, and like I don't want to say dragging me down, but it was there and it needs to be confronted. And obviously this is why I've set up this, but it was so important to me to face my grief almost, and like kind of, I don't want to say deal with it, but like it's one of those, like, our situations, they will never change. Like, we can't, but what we can change is like how we respond to like feelings of loss, and kind of take power back of those feelings. And it's not to say that we will never miss what we have, like our mums. It's something I'm sure you think about all the time, but it's for me anyway, it's like when and where I choose to like take power of those thoughts. And weird question, it just popped into my head, but do you like, so I like message mum quite a lot, like if I'm feeling a certain way, do you like find like you want to call her, or is there things that you do?
Yeah, so the weirdest one is like find my friends. I will never take my mum off phone.
Oh really? Okay.
But, like, obviously her phone, I don't even leave her phone's around.
Yeah.
It's like one of those things I'm like, I'll never delete that.
Yeah.
I guess it's the same kind of, I don't call her as much, but kind of for me, I like looking at photos, kind of it makes me remember. And I think that's the thing, because even now it's been 3 years, like I think my memories of her are kind of not as strong about, like I remember odd things and like being with her, but her voice, it's kind of harder to remember. And I think we actually found a voice note of her mum.
Oh really? Wow.
And I think I listen to that sometimes because it's just nice for me to hear her voice sometimes.
Yeah, so I'd say like I don't necessarily believe in like an afterlife or something like that.
Yeah.
For me, I don't really get much comfort out of kind of messaging,
Yeah,
anything
yeah,
like
of
that.
course.
But I like looking at like old messaging.
Yeah.
When she was away in America, we got this really nice voice note that we love to listen to because she says like, "I'm always with you."
Oh, really?
Stuff like that. It's just a really nice voice note.
Oh, wow, yeah, I'm
Whenever
sure.
I'm kind of feeling a bit sad, I always play that one out. But don't necessarily message or anything like that.
No, of course not. I think again, it's
Everyone
so
himself.
yeah, like
Yeah.
it would be weird if we all responded the same way because we all have again different people we lost.
Yeah.
And our relationships with these people are, myself, my brother and sister. Yes, we all lost a mum, but like we're not. Our relationship with mum was all so different. One thing I do want to know is. Just tell me a bit about your mum. Like, what was she like? Like, what was the thing? Yeah, just give us a bit of a.
So for me, like the thing I kind of miss, I'd say the most about my mum is just like, I guess her calm presence, just going to someone for advice. I think you can't really get that motherly warmth from anyone else.
Yes.
Yeah, same. I think my mum didn't like post her first cancer. She never worked, she did a few bits, but she never really worked again because she wanted to prioritise taking us to school and watching our netball and lacrosse matches.
Okay.
And I never really appreciated that much until now. And I think that's the sort of thing I miss, like my mum on the sidelines, or just like the small things, kind of having car chats and on the way back from a party, or just like her picking up and like just like asking advice about anything. I miss that. But yeah, no, I think like she was an unbelievable mum, like always prioritised us, and we did feel very loved, which is very lucky as well.
Yeah, it's amazing, and I think mums just have this incredible strength about them. Like, despite what my mum was experiencing, like you said, she would always take us to parties, pick me up from God knows where. And at the time, you don't appreciate it because you want your mum to be like everyone else's. And like, I don't know, Jamie's mum's always there. But like sometimes, even if mum managed to watch me play football, like sometimes I would expect it. But like, come to think of it now, like she was having chemo and radiotherapy and she was having all of this. The fact that she could come and see me was a miracle.
Yeah.
So now, I also have a hard time now, like when sometimes I see my mates treat their parents or mum a bit like not well.
Definitely.
100%. I think that's really interesting because sometimes like people don't pick up the phone to their mum, or kind of don't like on holiday might not message their mum as much. And I'm always like, you know what? It's so important to like speak to all your close people and really make that effort. And I'm like, you know what? It's a 2-minute call. It doesn't mean anything to you. And like, I'd give anything to have a 2-minute call. Again.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, I think it's hard to see, but it's also one of those situations where you can't really comment. And
you can't.
And also, they probably don't even think that that's affecting you. Like, it's such a small thing, and it's just their life. They're like, whatever. I speak to my mum like this all the time. Yeah. You're sat there like thinking about it in your head, but you can't say anything.
You can't because it's like, it's not for you to say. If the situations were reversed, it would probably be the same. But it's one of the things that comes with losing a parent that you don't naturally think would be the case. Like there are all these added aspects of a loss. The fact that milestones. I mean, I haven't graduated yet. Got another year, but I say that because I'm not a uni lover at the minute. But not having your mum at your graduation, how was that for you?
I mean, that was really tricky for me because I think it was a year after was it even a year? Yeah, it was a year after my mum passed away. So I think for me, it was really difficult, but I'm really glad she got to see me at university.
Okay.
I think for me, like I had just had my graduation and like it's such a bittersweet moment because obviously I am so happy, but like the night before I was just crying. I was upset that my mum wouldn't be there. And I think it's hard when you see everyone in their families, two parents, and it's not like, you're not jealous. Like it's not like I wouldn't wish this on anyone, but it's hard to see everyone with their families. You think kind of, why our family?
Yeah. Yeah. I think also it's such a transition going from two parents to one. Yeah. And, I have so much respect and love for my dad. And, at the time I was left asking questions. Why couldn't he do things that mum was able to do? Yeah. But then you have to remember he's a man, he's for 21 years or, my lifespan, but for a certain amount of years, he's had this one job, he was, the money man sort of thing. And mum was the more emotional standpoint. And now not having that, it's like, at the time I was like, well, Dad, like, why couldn't you, why can't you, do mum's role? But like, you can't do both.
I think it's a difficult balance because I think everyone's kind of grieving their own way. You're all in a family.
Yeah.
And it's kind of this idea that everyone should be brought so close together and it should all be better. And in some ways, like we have been brought a lot closer together. But I think it's also difficult when you're all grieving in your own way.
Yeah.
And like you're worried about everyone else in your family. So I'm like worried about myself, but then thinking, oh, I don't want Dad, stressing about too much. I don't want Ella upset. But then that's all that Dad's thinking about, and that's all that you're thinking about. It makes it like a very difficult dynamic, I think, especially in the first like few years.
And like my dad's unbelievable, so he's actually lost a lot. Like he's lost his 2 siblings, his parents, and
now his wife.
And he lost his both. People lost, yeah. So he's lost a lot of people, and I think like he's the most unbelievable dad because he just always prioritizes us. And I think the other thing is, dads and girls, like the mindsets are so completely different.
Yeah.
So like, if I like complain about one of my friends or something, or they've annoyed me slightly, and then my dad will be like, "That
name drop them right now."
Shout out.
Still likes you all. But
I was just saying, like, if I complain once, and then my dad's like, "Well, that's it. Like, you're not being friends, or like, you're not friends, are you?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "No, that was a temporary thing. We're best friends again."
Yeah.
But I think for dads, they're just so kind of wired. They're so black and white. And
our dad at least.
yeah, our dad. Like, or anything. Yeah, any stresses we have, he like wants to solve the problem. But I think, especially like if both of us like kind of chatting through like how to solve it, whereas he's like, okay, I'm just going to solve the problem.
Yes, I think men tend to have that. Dad as well has a very proactive. When there was a problem, Mum would kind of sit me down and we would talk on the phone, like what are we going to do uni-wise? How are we going to handle your, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
Dad's like, right, let's get you here. Let's, it was very, and he was amazing, throughout Mum's journey with cancer. He took her all around the world, and, he would be there in every treatment, and he would, he was amazing. And having that aspect is so needed because, for times when my mum is quite an emotional person, and having that practical head, was definitely, I know she would highly appreciate that, but I think also you do need that emotional support. And sometimes that's the thing I find hard, not having a mum.
Yeah.
And one of the things I'm also, left kind of thinking is I'm at an age now, I'm 21, and sometimes, I still feel grief because that's just so normal. Yeah. And then sometimes I'm left thinking like, who do I turn to? Because it's like that weird, like there will always be people there, but like you just want your mum.
Yeah. I think we had that a lot. And still probably do have that.
Yeah.
Like you have each other, you have your friends, and you even have, I don't know, family, friends and family, but I don't think that connection is the same as your mum. And
no.
I don't think for us in the last 3 years, or probably going forward, there necessarily was someone that we'd necessarily like want to call up, like we'd want to call our mum up, just for like the small inconveniences.
Yeah.
Like it feels like such a bigger deal to call someone else than it does to your mum,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, 1000%. But how was your relationship, both of you, throughout this journey?
As in sisters.
As sisters.
Oh, you're gonna bring out a fight over here.
That's what I said. I think it's just interesting because
That's such a fake laugh at me.
I think Georgia genuinely as a person is much more like kind of goes with the flow, is very kind of
quite tame.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm much more extremes. Like I'm either the happiest girl in the world, like having the best time, or like really, really sad, like not great mental health. And I think it was interesting because both of us we were so polar opposite. Whereas like Georgia was kind of a closed book, just got on with everything, and I actually was in a really bad place and like didn't want to go out, didn't want to see anyone. So I think it was interesting because my younger sister was kind of having to look after me.
Okay.
Which is a weird thing because I guess like as an older sister you always want to be there for your younger sister, but it's just because we grieve so differently. And I think obviously I had a really kind of shit like 6 months maybe, or even longer, but I kind of feel like I've got over my grief. And I think in a way, I don't know if you actually have got over your grief because you kind of have never dealt with it.
Everyone says this. Everyone says this.
Here she is. Here she is.
Here's a rebuttal.
Everyone says this to me. But like in my head, I probably maybe haven't dealt with it, but like in my head, I don't understand how I'm meant to kind of deal with it. I feel like I'm just getting on with my life. If I'm upset, then I'm upset, and I'm happy to talk about it. And I like can think about my mum without getting upset. So I don't necessarily. Well, this is bringing a bigger question. Like, what is grief, and how do you deal with it? Like, that's the question because I think it's so different for everyone. Like, I don't necessarily wake up every day and feel like really upset about the situation.
No.
There's times when I get upset, and that's when I'll deal with it when I'm faced with that time. But does that mean I've dealt with my grief? I don't know. I don't think you will ever know that until
like
the future, like
think, well, again, it's just how different grief is to everyone. There isn't a set in stone way to respond to these things. And like, you know, there are, in some of the conversations I've had, you know, people are quite proactive and quite, you know, just look at their grief as, you know, a stepping stone, and sometimes it's here and sometimes it's not. Whereas there are other people I've spoken to where the grief is just a lot more permanent. And I think that's also what makes it so hard when, you know, because it's so different for everyone. There isn't, you know, you can't, what would work for me, you know, in dealing with my, as you quote unquote, grief, would not work for anyone. I mean, you know, definitely playing sport has been massive for me. You know, I think also that team element just definitely allowed me to feel somewhat normal. And yeah, obviously sport, exercise, all of that is brilliant. But like, if you're having a down day, what is it that you guys kind of
So I think this what's funny. It's kind of, it sounds bad, but when it was like January the 1st, and we knew like on New Year's Eve, I was crying at midnight in the toilet, being like, my mum's going to pass away this year. And it was just a horrible, horrible evening. And
Quick, can I jump in? Is it weird? So when they tell, there's this annoying thing that's just floating about, and it should...
That's fine.
Oh, live on camera, just killed her.
Sorry. I think
you're going to get animal rights. Like
RSPs,
just...
I've got it. Wait, just go down.
There it is.
It's fine.
Oh well.
Anyway, but so hearing that someone's going to pass...
Yeah.
Like, there's a definite date.
Yeah.
Not a date, but like, you know, she might have 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month. But like, hearing that, how was that for you?
So for us originally, like, I think our dad found out when it was gonna like he got the original call. My mum never knew.
Yeah.
She never knew that there was like a set date kind of thing. She came back from America from her like treatment, and it was all going well. And then kind of after Christmas Day, really, it kind of went down. And like, there was a clear downturn, and we could all see it deteriorating. And I think all in the back of our heads, we kind of knew. Well, no, it was spreading. Like, she lost a bit of mobility in her legs and stuff like that. So I think it was kind of clear from that point that it was, you know, going to be spreading.
So I think my mum lost her dad at 18, and he had actually had brain tumour. And when he went into hospital, it was like his last time to go into hospital.
Okay.
So I think for my mum, when she was going in on Christmas, it was Boxing Day, I think. When she went in,
it was New Year's Day. She carried on to New Year's Day.
Okay, she carried on New Year's Day, but when she went back in on New Year's Day, like, she didn't want to go back to hospital because she was scared it was her last time. And I actually think my mum genuinely believed the whole time that she was going to survive this, which I think is a nice thing because she kind of had so much positivity and like was really strong, and she had 5 back operations. I can't remember what else she had.
3 back operations, 2 chemo. She went to radiotherapy in like America for like 6 months. This is all in a year, by the way. So
she had so much kind of against her, and like nothing was really working, but she was still so positive. But we didn't actually find out that it was terminal. Because the way my dad wanted to play it was that he wanted my mum to kind of not know that it was terminal.
Okay.
And he knew that we'd act.
Yeah,
kind of like in a way that would, you know, we'd treat her differently if we knew that kind of it was. So we'd been told it was coming.
So my mum's whole thing was like she wanted our lives to continue
as
much as possible. So she wanted me to go to my lacrosse games with the uni. Like, she wanted me to do everything, and it was hard because like I was on the way to uni, like games, and calling my dad to find out what the test results were of scans, and it was just so hard. But if I had stopped doing that, my mum would have known something was up.
I think she would have deteriorated a lot quicker.
Yeah, she would have deteriorated a lot quicker, and I think the doctors kind of all spoke to my dad. They'd tell my dad the results, and they kind of filtered it through to my mum.
Okay.
But it was like a weird one because, she started losing her mobility, and I remember so well, we went out for a lunch, and like she could literally hardly walk.
Okay.
It was really sad,
I think that's the moment for me was like my worst moment, which was like, this is the kind of towards the end.
Yeah.
And then it's funny because both of us, our biggest regrets was that Georgia had a cold. So like my mum basically one night, it was like a Tuesday night, complained that she had headaches, and the next day kind of went into like a sleep.
Yeah.
So she could hear everything, and she like could say a few words, but she couldn't actually see. And that day, the day before, I had gone to a lacrosse game, but we weren't to know. And then my sister also like had a cold, so didn't visit my
I didn't want to go to the hospital because I didn't want to make her ill. But now like we know that would have been the last day that we could have, you know, really spoken to her and had a proper interaction. And then I guess we had, so once she went into that sleep, we went in, and there was 12 days after that we basically just like stayed by her side every day in the hospital. We were sleeping on like, you know, those gym mats that you have in like school.
Like,
Actually,
really thin.
Yeah, like
mats.
That was our bed for 12 days.
Yeah.
And like at the beginning, you know, she'd say a few words and like respond, and she'd know we were there. And I think it was just important for us to kind of, she knew that we were like surrounding her. We didn't want her to like leave. And also we didn't know what was going to happen and when. I mean, at that point we knew that it was kind of, she'd gone into her sleep, and she wasn't going to last more than, I don't know, the month, you know? So we didn't know when it was going to happen, though. We didn't want her to be alone. So I think it was very important to us all to kind of stay in the hospital room.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really nice, you know, to be surrounded by love and comfort in your final hours. And, you know, there's a lot of, I think, back to the first, I don't know, pandemic, I don't know how to throw that in, but, you know, when people were not allowed to visit so-and-so in because of COVID, and, you know, Mum passed just before COVID, so it was like October, and you know, we discussed it a few months after. You know, had that been during you know, she was surrounded by so much love and comfort, and if it was anything different, it would have been like, you know, quite catastrophic, really. I think, you know, I don't want to say there's something nice about it, but I think there's something peaceful about, you know, coming to the end of your life, but like surrounded by these people that love you. And this, you know, we also didn't leave her side. I mean, it did get a bit very hard to see, you know, as I think, you know, couple days left, there are noticeable changes in your like sizing, and then she became quite delirious, and she wasn't really making sense. Well, actually, one of the things that I found incredibly hard was when I would hug Mum, and this was before she was even in hospital, and like I could just feel how like skinny and how much weight she'd lost. Like for me, that was like similar to seeing her walk for you guys. It was like, it wasn't so much seeing her like strapped to the tubes and all of that. Like obviously that's sad, but for me, hugging her and just feeling was just really, really difficult. But that's just cancer. But
I think also just, I know like the hospital were really good, but kind of I guess we've been fortunate away, or we've not unfortunate here, but I've like never actually seen kind of a person dead before. The way that everything happened after, it's like, and it's kind of quite traumatic to go through that whole process of waiting for someone to pass away, and then they pass away, and then like the whole kind of everything after that. And I think nothing kind of can prepare you for that.
No.
And especially, I guess, as kids, I know we're older kids, but still, it's really, I think it was a really traumatic experience.
No, I have bad memory, and I can remember like minute for minute that night.
Do you find yourself getting like nightmares?
So it's funny.
Is it funny?
Sorry, it's not funny.
No, I'm joking.
It's not funny at all. But whenever I dream about my mum now, she's always dying of cancer.
Yeah.
Always.
Is it the same reoccurring dream?
No, but my mum will always be dying.
Yeah.
Or have died in my dreams.
Yeah.
And I think that's a weird thing, because I always wake up and it's always like that process, like, oh my God, my mum died last night. Like in a weird way.
Yeah.
See, I don't really dream, but like that event, like I can sometimes, like, you know when you try to close your eyes and you can't get a thought out of your head?
Yeah.
And I can just like replay that event in my head.
Yeah.
I'm not asleep, but I can think it, and you try and like change your mind, think of something else, you know? Because like
it's not
a nice
thought.
thing
No,
to think about.
It's really, really just...
It's also like not what you want to remember of like your mum.
No, and that's the thing. It's spot on, to be honest. But I don't know. But like, that's really giving me a good thought. But like, one of the things I found was, because that was, you know, my most recent memory of her was her being unwell, and I initially found that was all I could think about, and it took a while for me to like kind of transition those thoughts to like, actually no, like that is not who my mum was. You know, Mum was the dancing queen. She was the person who would be up at parties, and you know, that was who my mum is. And it took a while for me to kind of, you know, change those thoughts. But also, I think she left me a few videos, and you know, I don't watch them all the time because, of course, they're quite upsetting. But one of the things that, you know, I remember from these videos that just are amazing. My mum was someone who just she would always put other people first. And despite what she was going through, she was always saying, Joe, you've got to go live your life. Joe, you've got, like, it was never about her, even though what she was having was, a travesty. It was always about, like, other people, which is just amazing. But I do want to talk about something. I'm strange, but obviously you're training for a marathon, or you've done one before?
No, I haven't. It's my first marathon.
Okay, and is that for?
Yeah, so my mum passed from sarcoma, which is something for us is that never even heard of it before my mum had it, and like even on Google, kind of there's so little research out there, and so basically we started fundraising for them. So we started fundraising while my mum was ill. So we raised like £26,000.
Yeah, they're a really small charity. They're quite like underfunded. So I guess we're trying our best wherever we can. But Ella's been training like non-stop.
So it's in October, and I think the reason I did it is because my mum's birthday is in October as well.
Okay, wow.
So it's kind of nice to do it for her, and I think it's funny because I kind of run when I train the way back from work. I always pass UCH, like the hospital where she was. Yeah. And I think for me, it's kind of like motivating that I am doing this.
Okay. I was going to say. Yeah.
Or this morning, I kind of ran back from Radlett Prep, and that's where she used to like work as an assistant. And for me, it's kind of those small things that actually like kind of keep me going. I'm like, I'm doing this for my mum.
Yeah. Like there's that real purpose. I mean, I do find myself in general, like because mum isn't here, I kind of, I don't like to use the cliche live my best life, because I think I don't necessarily agree with that, but I do find myself now, because I saw how fragile life is, I have this perspective that like, I'm almost obligated to live a life she would have wanted for me. And that doesn't mean I'm going to be doing a marathon, because I don't think that's not a bit of me. I don't know. Could I do a marathon? What's it? 40?
I can't even do a marathon.
You have to do a marathon. Don't say that. I think one thing you're like with what you're saying. When we were running,
are you doing the marathon?
No. I'm not doing the marathon. But when we've been running together before, and it gets really tiring, you can't bother to run anymore. And like sometimes I just think in my head, you know what? We're so privileged that we can even run. 100%. Like after seeing what kind of our mum went through, especially in those final stages where she had to keep like learning to re-walk, and with her operations, like in her spine, it's a big operation. Yeah. When I'm running and I'm tired, I'm literally thinking, you know what? I'm like lucky that I'm able to move on my two legs at the moment.
Yes.
But I think about.
But I think it's everything in life. Like I kind of would just do anything. Like if we go we're lucky we went skydiving, or just like for any activity. I'm like, you know what, life is so short. Amazing. But I was like, life's so short that you just have to live your life and like go out, have fun with your friends. And when people are like, I can't be bothered, especially post lockdown, when people are like, I can't be bothered to go out, I'm like, literally life is short, and B, you've been locked down for a year and a half. Like go out and have fun.
Yeah, precisely. I mean, you've got it spot on, and that will probably be the bit that I'm going to put on Instagram because that's quite motivating. But no, it's something that really puts your life in perspective. And did you guys find, when you were working, this little fucker just chill out, enjoying the conversation, isn't he? But so when you were working for your degree, was that a motivator for you, or just?
Yeah, for me, definitely. I feel like, to be honest, we've always kind of been a bit stressy with exams. Yeah. But I'd say definitely, especially because like A-levels was straight after. And then university, like my mum never knew that I kind of got into university or anything like that. So, yeah, well. But I kind of wanted to make her proud, I guess. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think the same for me. Is that I felt kind of I had 1 year of uni, then my mum passed away, and then I had the second year, which I wasn't really, or like when she was ill, but kind of like I wasn't really there. And I think for her, I want like to complete the degree for her. Yeah. And I think the other thing I was going to say is that something that I started kind of on January the 1st when she was like in hospital was this 1 line a day book. Okay. Where it literally, I write like a line a day, and even during the hospital, I kind of wrote what she was saying that day. And then after the passing and everything, like I kind of continue to write it, and now it's like each page is a day, so you have all 5 things, and now I think I'm on my 4th year of doing it.
Oh wow.
And I think that's the nice thing is I kind of look back and I have such nice times now, and I look back to the first line of like the first date, and it's kind of how awful was my life when kind of like in hospital. And I think that's the thing. It's really nice for me to look back.
That's really therapeutic.
I love it. And I probably will continue doing it in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
But for me, it's something that's so nice to see how far I've come.
Yeah.
And like even when I graduated, like seeing graduated on the same page as like me dealing with my worst grief, kind of because it was like 2 months after or whatever.
Yeah.
I think it's just really nice to see how far I've come and like how much I actually have achieved in spite of everything that's happened.
Yeah. I think it's that thing that we have this thing in our life, but that doesn't mean we can't go on and achieve, do wonders. And I do think what has happened will motivate me, and in different kind of areas. Like, of course, one thing I do is I do put too much pressure on myself, and I'm fortunate enough that I can do that. But like when you're living with a terminal illness, like what's the point in putting pressure on yourself when living is the most important thing? And sometimes for me it's just about remembering that the fact that I can appreciate, even it sounds so silly, but even going to like Starbucks and have a coffee, something like that. And the little things in life you don't appreciate, and when you just start to notice them and you start to just think about them, for me, that just kind of leaves me with comfort. I'm not this. I don't really know where I was going with that, but
but I genuinely think like it's putting everything in perspective.
Yeah.
So like the fact that whatever you can achieve, like given everything that's happened, I think it's a nice
thought. Yeah,
it's a nice thought. And I think the other thing is work stresses, uni stresses, all of that stuff in perspective, like. It might matter to you in this day or this week, but actually in a year's time you're not going to remember all those stresses. No. You're going to remember the good times. So I think it's nice kind of to like put things in perspective and to think about like in the grand scheme of things, you're lucky that you've got your health, you've got your like fun, you've got your friends, you've got family like around or whatever around you.
How do you deal with stress?
I don't so bad.
So all is about stress.
That's why I've kept quiet this whole time, because I'm hearing the perspective and I agree with that. But I think, like, in action, like, it's very... Like, I agree, obviously, after seeing everything, that, like, there's so much more to life, and there's a higher level. But make me stress, and I'm a horrible person.
I am... Oh, wow. Like...
She's the queen of stress.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I am stress queen. You don't want to speak to me if I'm stressed.
I don't know if it is actually, like, a coping mechanism that you just go from one thing to the next.
Yeah.
You go from... You went from A-levels to now working for a degree, and now you're, like, working at work, and even at work, you want to do the best you can, I think. You just go. I think you need to have stress in your life to do well.
Yeah.
Which sounds
I'm a
bad.
stresser. Really healthy, guys.
As my dad would say, you're fun at parties. Actually, you are quite fun at parties.
Oh, thanks, Joe.
No, I am a terrible stress head. It's one of the like obviously you can preach all you like about coping mechanisms and all of this, but at the end of the day, when the stress is there, it's pretty toxic.
Yeah.
But like. For me anyway, it does. I think it's in a weird way. Like it is good to have somewhat stress because like you have something on to stress about. Like the fact that I'm stressing. Sometimes I stress about this episode guest, things like that aren't that important. But it's like I don't know. It's weird because it's like at least I have something on to
stress about.
Yeah,
I think it shows you care as well.
Yeah,
it shows you're passionate about it, and I think that's something that's really nice to kind of find your passions and find what you love doing.
I love stressing about work, guys.
Just love finance.
I just love it.
No, but honestly, thank you girls for joining me today. It's been a really, really nice chat. The bear was a really nice touch. Brian?
No, Bazzy.
Barry.
I was calling him Baz, but
Baz. But I always like to end on one note. And if you were to have a conversation with your mum again, what is it you'd say?
How much I appreciate her and love her. And I think that's the thing, is that I just probably didn't, and now I'm saying I probably didn't do enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd say like how much I appreciate everything she did for me.
Yeah, I'd probably say thank you and everything like that, and then probably tell her that we're all right, kind of thing, because I feel like that was her worry when she was going to pass away. It wasn't about her. It was about make sure daddy's okay, make sure you girls will be okay, and don't change your path and keep going. So to tell her that, we're all doing fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. And yeah, that's any last little word? No, I'm joking.
Thoughts?
No, but thank you so much. Honestly, it's been really, really lovely, and we can call that a wrap.
Thank you very much.
That's a wrap. Sweet.
I just want you to find your truth and stick to it. I know you'll be okay. I know it. From the bottom of my heart, I know it. I love you, Papa.